Hello, good people. Welcome again to the Cancer and Comedy Podcast. I'm Dr. Brad Miller, and along with my co-host Deb Creer, we'd like to talk to people who have something to share in the area of helping people to use humor to as a coping mechanism or way to get through life. We often like to call it a coping organism and how that's a part of the living, breathing part of your life. And today we have an author with us, Lou Franzini. He is the author of How Humor Helps. He's a former professor and now retired status, but he's writing and involved with the field of therapeutic humor. Lou, welcome to our conversation here today, my friend.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Brad.
Yeah, well, Brad's fine, and then I'll call you Lou, and we'll just go from here. Lou, what's something to put a smile on your face here recently, my friend? What's something that made you have some humor in your life?
Well, I try to do it every day, and
Okay.
not by until something comes up for that. And I actually had an incident earlier today. I had bought some things at a CVS and got home and found out that I failed to give them my coupons. So
Okay.
I went back and saw the clerk who had checked me out, and her name was Autumn, as it turned out. And I
Okay.
said, I told her what happened. I forgot to give you the coupons I had. And so I did, and she was going to give me credit for it and so on. It was all taken care of. And I said, what happened? It was really your fault, I said, because you distracted me. You were so pretty. And I actually made a call for Autumn. And
Well,
that was, she said that's the first time she heard that connection. So it
what's
all worked
that?
out well, and
So
made the
it's
whole transaction smooth.
well,
But it was
there
the
you
dumbest
go.
mistake I'd made in a long time,
You put it.
forgetting my coupons.
Sound like you had a smile on your face, and put a smile on her face too. Apparently,
Exactly.
that's
And
good.
the whole transaction went well. Yeah.
Well, give us a little bit about your background, Louis. You were a professor at a university, and you've kind of studied this area of you're in the psychology field, but you got involved with the study of humor. So, give us a little bit about your background and what you've been involved with.
Well, I got my degree in University of Pittsburgh, my PhD, as well as undergraduate and bachelor's in psychology and pre-med. And when I also did a postdoc at Stony Brook University in behavior modification, which was more into my interest as a clinician. So I took an academic job at San Diego State University, and I'd heard great things about California and wanted to go there. Once I
Yeah.
read it in a Look magazine, they did a whole article on it. I mean, a whole issue on it, and I wanted to go to California, even though I'd never been further west than Chicago. And anyway, during my career as an academician, of course, you need to publish and do that sort of work as well as teaching classes and so on. And I've always been interested in humor my entire life.
Okay.
And after a while, I began to do studies on the topic. And for example, I have an article in Sex Roles Journal, and I've been studying humor there, and it's obviously an interesting topic for me. And while in San Diego, I was a member in a Toastmasters International Club, which
Okay.
was the only one at the time that specialized in humor. And
Okay. Okay.
so,
Huh.
I won some humorous speech contests. I also have done some stand-up comedy at various
Okay.
psychological conventions and so on.
Yeah.
And so I was able to combine interest in publishing and being an academician and a scientist and all that, and published a number of articles on humor. Uh, Anybody interested in that could look me up, name, and so on.
Yeah.
One interesting one was I did a study with on the you would understand university faculty offices. Well, some
Okay.
people post things on their door or adjacent to their door, and I
Right.
studied the kinds of postings that were humorous on doors of professors at the university,
Okay.
and this was
Yeah.
published in Humor Journal. It's actually a very technical journal.
Okay. Well, very good then. Well, tell me a bit about how you've kind of combined these worlds of research and real
We
life.
froze up there a moment.
Yeah, I think we did there. So, um,
Okay.
We'll jump
Okay.
back.
I think we're
I think we'll jump back into it here. I don't know what's going on. For some reason, I think internet on your end or my end might be a little weak or something. I'm not sure why. It just weird. I don't usually have this issue. We had it with you the other day for some reason, but we will charge on here. But let me ask you this, Lou.
uh,
I'll do a clap here for my own sound mark. But you've kind of been involved with this world of research, which is interesting to me because I know you're involved with the Association of Applied and Therapeutic Humor. This is kind of a research organization. I'm involved with that organization as well. You spent time as a professor, and you dealt with this study of humor in the academic life. And then you talked about your real life a little bit with the CVS and so on, and you even done a little stand-up comedy here. How do you think these various areas come together for as you like in your book, you say humor helps. How do you think these worlds come together for you to be helpful to people in understanding the influx of humor to help people get by day to day?
well, the book is up for just anybody. It doesn't. It's not technical.
Right.
But when you do research on humor, obviously it's got to meet certain standards to get publications,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and so in that sense helpful to the whole field of psychology and personality theory and that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and also in stress reduction, relaxation, and some of the things that the clinical psychologists are especially interested in,
Mm-hmm.
appropriately so. And so that part has usefulness to students and graduate students and colleagues in the field. And um, other than performing and talking, even giving speeches and so on, you want to use humor appropriately for the setting. Um, your setting doesn't want any foul language when am interviewed by you, for
Right.
example. And
Right.
that will be easy for me because I don't use foul language even in real life.
Well, there.
So I don't
That's
know on
good.
a formal interview,
All
uh,
right.
with certain exceptions on the tennis court, but that's
I understand that. Uh,
practically uncontrollable. Uh,
right. Right.
so, uh, and you have to be alert to the listener, what would be appropriate for them, and you don't want to come on in a sexy way with some stranger and so on,
Right.
other
Yeah.
than and so on. So, appropriate humor is what we're urging, of course,
Sure.
rather than blatant. But it has so many positive effects,
Well,
and you can meet strangers easily, and if you're appropriate.
Well, part of what we deal with here in cancer comedy is how cancer can help people deal with adversity, cancer and things like that being one of them, but also you've got stresses of life, you've got, relationship issues, divorce, things like that. You've got financial pressures, you've got workplace pressures, you've got grief, death in families, and so on. And I think what your book here and what you're trying to do is try to be helpful to people in these kind of things. And you mentioned, among other things, that it actually has some physiological aspects, lowering blood pressure and so on. But give me just some of your thoughts about how humor can help people with some of these physiological things and some of the interpersonal things that people deal with. What's your take on that?
Well, they all can be improved by the appropriate use of humor,
Mm-hmm.
and that's always an important adjective and all that. Um, the evidence is getting stronger in terms of the physiological studies, where the use of humor and then laughter
Mm-hmm.
um, leads to certain physical benefits straight away.
Right.
Blood pressure going down, relaxation going down. Um, Hormones, the stress hormones in the blood are less likely to be released in the face of humor and laughter. And it's also a coping mechanism. Successful use of humor leads people to have more self confidence and enjoy other people, and other people enjoy them. Um, it's one of the most interesting things I think about that in terms of the effect of the good humor with people is that it's one of the things that they most look for when they're looking for a new friend or a mate or a romantic interest
Yeah.
in dating sites and so on.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Yes, indeed.
it's one of the highest kind of characteristics that people are looking for in a mate or a new friend,
Yeah.
and
People.
that's also one of the highest they list for themselves.
People
as
people
having a
often people often report somebody made me laugh. Therefore, it kind of broke down some barriers or kind of initiated a deeper level of
yeah.
conversation.
And
And and I think that's when
once a
people
relation excuse me, once a relationship is established and maybe they get married and for a long time, and that's one of the first things people say, well, how did you manage to live 50, 60 years together married? And well, and they had shared a sense of humor is one of the
yeah.
first things that they say. And
Well, my wife often says to people when we first meet them, "How'd you get together with me?" And she says, "I'm a sucker for a goofball," and so I'm her goofball, and she makes me laugh by other ways as well. But it has to do with
yeah,
your
great.
mood and things like that. But we live in a world, Lou, where people can be overwhelmed by all kinds of things. We can be overwhelmed by sometimes it's by something of the initial stressor, or sometimes it could be the caregiving stressor if you're trying to care for someone else and things like that. And what I'm trying to get at, you say something in one of our conversations, that everybody has a sense of humor, even if they think they don't. So how do you think people can kind of dig down and find their sense of humor when they've been kind of stress and pressure has kind of got the best of them? Any way people can kind of dig deep for that?
Well, they can familiarize themselves with, and that's like funny movies, funny books,
Right.
comedy shows on TV, and there'll be a great variability whether somebody likes somebody's comedy, but usually be something in a whole performance that you're really going to react to, and to just maybe think of that funny comment one of the pro comedians made, and so
Right,
on.
right.
That can help you distract yourself a little bit. And I saw, you may have seen this yourself when we talked about the Comedy Cures Foundation.
Oh,
One of
yes,
the
right.
suggestions from them was that uh, even if you have cancer, you want to try to diminish that influence on your life.
Mhm.
And then the humorous response is, "I can't do that. I have cancer."
Right, right,
And
right.
so some things are easier to overcome than another. If
Yeah,
the kid says a funny thing, uh, humor can help you overcome it and enjoy joint laughter with your child. It's not the same as having cancer, but um, there's lots of positive things you
yeah.
can still say even if you have cancer.
Well,
You're alive and well, and not well, but you're alive and still coping.
yeah. Well, I think part of this is making connections, and humor can be one of those ways that we can make some connections that may not have been naturally there. It could be a generational thing. It can be a lifestyle thing. It could be your career type of thing, and you can kind of cross boundaries or make connections that people can deal with this. And you've been doing research on this area about the power of humor for some times, especially how humor can be helpful over harmful. Okay, so say a word about that. So, what do you think are some of the boundaries of humor? What are the ways that humor can be harmful, and then how can we really lean into being helpful?
Well, some of the easiest answers to that is what's inappropriate socially.
Right,
So you don't want to use humor that's racist or sexist or ageist.
right.
Um, unless the joke is about the humor. It gets a little complicated, but
Mm-hmm.
obviously you don't want somebody you don't even know very well, and you say some joke that would fall into those categories. No sense doing that. That's not going to facilitate your relationship with anybody, and you don't know, particularly a new person, their values and customs and what's important to them, and so on. So you want to avoid all of that. Uh, Possibly off color or off appropriateness.
Right,
And some people say that, well, you can say, here's one that's kind of controversial, the use of the N word.
right.
And the N word is not, in my view, appropriate for anybody to say, including African Americans. All
Sure.
it does is I'm thinking African American comedians
Right,
particularly, all it does is desensitize people to the use of that term, and it's a terrible term. Nobody should use it. Doesn't matter who you are or whether you're even mixed race for that matter, and that
right,
complicates the
right,
whole picture. um, it's just a word they shouldn't use. It's not necessary. And even still, a lot of people have cut it out, professional comedians, but
right,
some are still doing it. um,
right.
Dave Chappelle, who's really a talented guy, for example, but he uses it every other word almost,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
It's
it's
even
not
in the
not
long
my
run.
not my style either. And so, well, I'm going to make sure we lean into how humor helps her in a second. But I am just aware that how I think it's kind of a contextual thing too, Lou. See what you think about this in the sense of, if we use humor to be depreciating someone else, that's one thing. If we use it for kind of self-deprecating, that's another thing. I'm a retired
Mhm.
guy, and I can talk about aging and health matters that affect me, but maybe not be the appropriate thing to say that about someone else. That kind of thing.
Yeah,
You make a joke at someone
right.
else's expense. If I do it at my expense, that's a different thing. I'm not sure how you feel about that, but I wanted to mention that. I think that makes a difference. Then, so you mentioned that how humor kind of is hurtful. Let's talk about how it can be helpful. It's kind of the theme of your book there. How can it be helpful?
Yeah, it could be helpful in lots of ways. And um, one way we haven't talked about that's appropriate to your question is humor in the workplace.
Okay.
Um, some workplaces have historically been straight and narrows. I don't know if that's the right word, but no humor is appreciated there.
Right.
And we found out where you work in, say, an office that does appreciate humor. Not that anybody's telling jokes all day long or something, but when an office is a friendly place to go, absenteeism is less in that office. It also helps in the interview when you're applying for a job. It helps in sales. People are able to use humor as part of their sales talk with
Yeah.
somebody. Increases their sales. Many advantages. People like people who are funny and humorous, and without losing sight of the
Sure.
reason you're working together.
So if I'm hearing
And
you correctly, humor in the business context can actually impact the bottom line. It can be a helpful
yeah,
thing to your business or to your engagement. Networking is another thing I think can be a part
absolutely.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and people like to come to an office where they're going to be able to, make a joke about somebody or with somebody, and
Right.
then get on with the work. I mean, it's not like somebody's chatting all day long.
Right.
It just makes for a better atmosphere, and there's studies that support that. The profits go up, and people make more sales than they do
Right.
the sourpusses and so on. So that itself is kind of an innovative idea to some people, not to me or not to some of the researchers. Um, there are some important books out on the area on the successful use of humor in the business world, and that's something people wouldn't even think of probably in first glance. And of course, there's the obvious physical benefits of the blood pressure and some of the physical advantages to the use of humor and laughter, humor and laughter. Um, One of the people that I think I quoted in the book was a guy by the name of Brad Montgomery, and he says, "Humor and laughter will not only change your day, they will change your entire life."
There you
And
go. There you go.
I made that quotation because I appreciated what he said in one of his articles. But
Sure. Well, let's
then you
get
have the go ahead.
let, let's get very practical for a minute here, Lou. Let's just, given your experience, your teaching, your research, and your observing people, what do you think are some really practical actions that somebody can take? Maybe one or two simple everyday things people can use humor to help make their day better, or maybe a coping strategy, if you will, for dealing with the bad things that happen to them. Especially if people aren't naturally, the joking type or whatever it would be. What are some strategies people might use? One or two.
Well, you want to expose them to humor, and
Yeah.
the TV now gives you many opportunities to watch. Now, even I and other people don't like everything that's supposedly presented by professional comedians. There are
Right.
lots of stand-ups that go on, and but just expose yourself to humor. And if you find a particular person, male or female, that you don't really care for, they're getting into things you don't want to uh, advance to, then switch it off. On another channel, there'll be somebody who's doing it, and so exposing yourself to humor will get you laughing. And if it's not tasteful for you, move on to somebody else. Um, uh, I saw Tom Papa recently
Right.
in in person, and he says a lot of people take all these medications to be happy. He said, well, it's not natural to always be happy,
Right, right,
and
right. Yeah,
so much the better. And he'd rather say, okay, this isn't so much funny and so on, but expose yourself to humor. Things on
right,
TV, it's easy, it's cheap. You don't have to spend money going to a show, but
right.
the more you do that, and there are books on humor, on all sorts of things, how to make people laugh, and not only my books. There's some other books apparently out
Now,
there,
apparently
and
so. Yeah. Well,
well,
there's
yes,
lots.
once you're finished with mine,
But there you go. Well, I think what you're saying is be intentional about it. You know, we can spiral into a dark place, right? People can easily spiral into psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, every way. People can spiral into a dark place, and you kind of have to be intentional about getting yourself out of that. And one aspect of that is humor. You know, and to be the intentional part of maybe even physically. I know some of the people I've talked to here on this podcast talk about physically forcing yourself to laugh is a good thing. You know, just kind of an exercise, as it were, is to do that. So,
yeah, that would help. That would do some of the advantages to it, but it shouldn't be hard to find something that you laugh at without having to be
right,
forced,
that's
and
right.
that's
Yeah,
what's fun.
yeah.
And you'll get the benefits in spades, so to speak, uh,
Well,
for
well,
that.
one of the things that makes me laugh a lot is when I'm around kids, especially my own grandchildren. They make me laugh a lot. They are natural giggle boxes. My two granddaughters are, and I know
Mhm.
you've done some writing and some research about humor with kids and humor with adults. I'm just really kind of interested in that. What have you learned about that? About kind of the how humor, is helpful to kids versus adults and so on, that type of thing. Could you just speak to that for just a minute?
Yeah, it so happens that I have another book called Kids Who Laugh,
Yeah.
and that's for parents to help develop their child's sense of humor. And historically, a lot of parents did not appreciate funny things from children or speaking
Right.
up and so on. And uh, if you can encourage your child to tell you a joke, you may have heard the joke 100 times, but go ahead and laugh and praise them for that. Oh, that's funny, and so
Yeah.
on. And the that other book, Kids Who Laugh, uh, gives lots of tips to parents and the value it will be to their child to have an active and successful sense of humor. So parents shouldn't turn the child, oh, I'm busy, tell me later or something. Listen to it, and it may not be funny to you, but it's funny to the child, and you want to encourage them to do it. And the kinds of things children find funny varies as they get older and older. And so that book I recommend for anybody that has children or nieces and nephews that are under 12. So from 0 to 12, that's the book. When you get to be 12, they get into a little more similar to some adult humor, and
Right.
that's a
Right. Right.
different issue. But
And
encourage a child to tell you the knock knock joke that's
sure.
usually quite innocuous, so to
Right.
speak.
Sure.
And
Yeah. Well, I think that's helpful, and I know it's helpful to me, to have those just silly, toddler type humor and that kind of stuff, just being silly, and that's kind of a thing too. And so,
sure.
I want to bring it around to one thing here. Just do you think there's any certain things that we deal here with cancer and other illnesses and that kind of thing, and how people can do that? And some people say that uh, if you use humor during illness, you're not taking your matters seriously enough, and it's kind of a concern type of thing. So how do you respond to that when people, whatever it is, whether it's cancer or something else, when people say you need to take what's happening to you seriously and joking about it's not taking it seriously? How do you respond to that type of criticism?
Well, you want to be sure to cover that if your doctor says, take this or that medication or whatever. Um, so you want to respond to that. And if you make light of it in some way, uh, don't lose sight of the serious element of the interaction.
Sure.
And with children, they you want to keep them appreciating humor and using humor as best they can, but not to lose sight of the fact that they still have to do their homework for
Sure.
whatever the issue is.
Come, there's a
Uh,
time. There's a time to laugh and a time to get to work. And so, yeah. Okay.
yeah, and you can combine them a little. Um, that I don't know. In your example, the child, he has to do chores or do his homework or so on,
Right.
and you could say, "All right, you can do that. Then I won't have to contact the child labor laws. You do your homework and whatever you might say." Uh, so in that way, they're going to do the task, and you could make it light,
Sure.
and everybody's
Sure.
happy,
Well,
and their blood flows.
let me bring it around to one more. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish your thought
Oh,
there.
I just you get an old professor talking, you're going to need a stop button or a shotgun
Well,
to take.
well, you're a professor. I'm a preacher, so we both are used to talking, right? So there you go.
Yeah, yeah, same problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the what I was going to ask you about, just kind of bring our conversation around to this, is this kind of if you were to say, let's just say, you are a doctor as a PhD, and have an academic degree as well, but let's just kind of put ourselves in the role because we both have studied humor and we both have used it in some sense to try to be helpful to people. But if you're going to sort of write a prescription to someone about how to apply humor to your life, let's talk about that. What would be the dosage or the timing or the warnings about applying humor to your life? What would the prescription look like to someone, especially someone who's kind of, in the dumps?
Well, okay, when you're down or in the dumps, uh, one good way to do it is to seek out some humor. Okay, where do you get that? Well, TV is a good source. There's all sorts of things from romantic comedies and stand-up comedy on some of those presentations. Seek out some humor and maybe do it with a friend as well. And people are less likely to complain when they're with somebody else, even a spouse or a friend. So uh, seek out some humor and then even try some yourself that's appropriate for the setting that you're in.
Yeah. Well,
And
you
when,
mentioned you've done some stand up humor of your own, and I'm sure that was a challenge for you. So
oh, no, sure. And you don't have to be in a formal auditorium to do it. You can do it
right,
on the street
you
and
do
across
it
the
around the dinner table or whatever it would be, right? Yeah.
across the living room and so on. And when you use humor successfully and you get somebody else responding positively and with a smile and so on, then that builds your own self-confidence and
Yeah.
your reduces any stress you may have in the situation. It's good for you as well as the listener,
Yeah.
assuming it's appropriate, and that's always the issue. Be careful not to offend. And a white person saying a racist joke to a black person ain't gonna come out well.
No,
And
you got to.
so
Yeah. Right.
that's an obvious thing.
Yeah.
But that it can have benefits to yourself. You feel good and confident, and any problems you have with your own self-esteem go down the drain too.
Yeah. Well, appreciate what you're sharing then about kind of a prescription for people to be intentional about it, about humor in your life, and that can help because the whole theme of what your book is all about is how humor helps, and you talk about it in terms of your emotional life and your relationships and other things of that nature. So the book is How Humor Helps. Tell our audience how people can get a hold of the book and find out more about you.
Well, it's available on Amazon, and as I say, probably in other fine bookstores. And it's just out, just became available. The warehouse is full, so we want to empty that warehouse and make so there's room for other people's books.
Right.
So I hope you enjoyed everybody that I've talked to, and of course they're talking to the author, so they're going to be praiseworthy. There
There
might
you
be a
go.
little bias there, but
Right.
I'm proud of the book, and when I reread it, I was impressed too. So and I was
Okay.
totally objective about that.
Of course, of course, of course. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, his name is Louis Franzini, Lou Franzini, and the book is How Humor Helps. And I am a big believer in this as well. And we'll put connections to how to get a hold of the book at our website, cancerandcomedy.com. Lou, thank you for being our guest today on Cancer and Comedy.
Thanks, my pleasure. It was fun.